It's good to see you. You're looking healthy and happy.
Oh, look, this beautiful Blue Mountains there. You could only be healthy up here, Greg.
Good. Look, Miriam, I'm just interested for you to tell me about your experience sort of last year in leading a community in the COVID-19 age. And perhaps then after that, what you learned from the experience. So just a general reflection on last year.
All right. Well, Greg, I suppose first and foremost, there was the enormous challenge of the unknown. So, there was always, we love certainty and we love control. And I think that almost comes with our profession as well. There's that desire for structure, and all of that was taken away. And I suppose in terms of, let's start with the children, because that's where we always need to start. So in terms of the children, I think it took a while for them to cotton on to the fact that things were going to work very differently. They needed to see it playing out. And there wasn't really that much anxiety initially, I would say, among the children, because they didn't have a sense of where it was heading. And then we were very quick. We were agile at school around getting ready for online learning, as every school in the diocese was. And I think there was great confidence among the parents that we were working as hard as we could to make things work for them during home learning. And that initial feeling of parents being able to engage with their children at home and giving parents the opportunity to be primary educators, there was a lot of positivity around that space. Like, I can't say it was for everybody, because for some it was enormously challenging, but I would say for most of our parents there was positivity, and they were feeling engaged, and they knew what they needed to do with their children. In terms of our teachers, it was initially very challenging, but because the children were off-site by and large, teachers had much more time to collaborate around what they would provide for the children around learning. There was always somebody who could talk to parents. There was just that team. Like, with all of this, with all of the challenges, we saw collaboration really working very well.
So how would you say that that impacted on your leadership style?
Okay, well, look, I think there was a real need to keep very close communication with parents. And what I discovered more than anything else, Greg, was that the telephone was our best friend. Because, you can send, you can have Zoom meetings and you can send emails, but you actually get a response there and then when you're on the phone, and you can sense how people are traveling. So we did a lot of phone calling. We're lucky to be a small school, but we kept in contact with the parents a lot, especially during that lockdown time, just to see how they were traveling.
A prime responsibility of leadership, I think. So you've settled in now to maybe the next iteration of COVID-19 world. Now, what have you learned that you're going to do differently, or have you thought about doing something differently?
Okay, well, first of all, I need to say to you, Greg, that I'm actually feeling the effects more now than I did last year. So if I were to go back to what I was saying a minute ago about people feeling last year was a bit new, not sure where it was heading. The anxiety was there to a degree, but it was anxiety around not knowing what the way ahead was. And now I'm looking at anxiety around the fact that people have been kept away from schools, that there's an ongoing concern, but it doesn't seem to be really happening on the ground, that there's still uncertainty, that there's still a lot of questions. And I've seen, particularly in my community, a lot of issues among parents and anxiety among children that I didn't see last year, in fact. So I would say that this term so far, there's been an intensity of work around student well-being and parent well-being at our school. So I suppose in terms of, learning from COVID, one thing I definitely learned was that good communication and regular communication is a great thing. Even if you can't be face-to-face with people, relationships really matter, Greg. And the communication is our way of making sure that that happens. So even now, even though there is some angst in the community, that communication seems to give people, that feeling of hope and the capacity to keep going. So that would be one thing. Another thing I think is that the potential for the human is enormous. Our teachers can adapt when we're put under pressure. But, there needs to be an urgency, Greg. because I think that's what happened with COVID. We saw great learning. We saw great communication with parents. We saw children who, by and large, were happy with what was happening, but there was an urgency about all of that. So I feel we need to keep that sense of urgency there.
Yeah, that is such a great point to finish on, because I agree wholeheartedly. Every child needs outing now, today, not tomorrow. You know, Of course, we're full of hope, but what we do now will determine tomorrow. So the school's lucky to have you, and they're richer for it. So thanks very much for being part of the series, Miriam.
Greg, thank you for the opportunity.